Are you gonna help me talk about Octavia Butler? You gonna help me? Alright. Hey everyone, it is Atia here, Booking In with Atia. Welcome or welcome back to the channel. And today we have a little bit something different. I am going to be giving you a roadmap to Octavia E. Butler's work. Well, Strawberry and I are going to be giving you a roadmap. This was highly requested, and I was like, I have to do it. So back in August, during one of my ARC August lives, I talked about Kindred and how Kindred is often thought of as either Octavia Butler's best work or her most influential, or it's thought of as like where you should start with her work. And I vehemently disagree. And so I was able to find the clips of me talking about Kindred, and I will insert them now. I feel like everyone always is like, yeah, right, Kindred. Kindred does not even begin to touch what she was capable of as a speculative, like, science fiction fantasy writer. I have my thoughts on why that's the most popular one of hers. Not that it's a bad book. It's not. It's not her best. And it always blows my mind that that is the book people talk about when they talk about Butler. And it's like, can we please stop centering white people and chattel slavery for a moment? And just step outside the line. It's the most easily digestible of, yes, reasons. What would those reasons be? Mainstream media, aka read white media, loves a slave story. Ooh, it loves a slave story. It loves put a black woman back in time and make her relive how horrible it was, so that when she gets back to where she was, where it's still kind of horrible, she's like, oh my god, at least I'm not a slave. Mainstream, read white media loves the idea, the concept that Black Americans are unable to be extracted from white people and white supremacy, because that's what Kindred is. It really is her making the choice of, let me save this horrible racist white little boy over and over again, even though he does not deserve to be saved, because in order to do that, that is how I survive. And if that is not the biggest metaphor for being Black in America, I don't know what is what we see every single election cycle. And I don't fault Butler for writing that book. I think the book does what it needs to do, but I very rarely see non-Black people engaging with the work the way that I think it's supposed to be engaged with. It's like, you just like miss the point. Like, truly miss the point. The toxic relationship that Black people are in with white America. That is Kindred. Thanks for coming to my TED Talk. And big shout out to Chris, who posed the original question asking me if I've ever read any of Octavia E. Butler's works, and has been steadily reminding me that I promised to do this guide or roadmap. And so I have broken this up into 3 sections, really 4 sections. I'm first going to just talk a little bit about Octavia E. Butler, but then we're going to go into like where you should start based on your reading and what you want out of a book, essentially. And so, for those who don't know, Octavia E. Butler was a renowned Black American sci-fi and fantasy author who unfortunately wasn't given her flowers while she was still living. And Butler was a MacArthur Genius Grant recipient, as well as a winner of the Nebula Award for Best Sci-Fi Novel in 1995 for Parable of the Sower. Butler was praised for her lean prose, strong protagonist, and social commentary in her novels, which span from historical to futuristic. While Butler's novels are praised now, she struggled for decades because her novels exploring themes of Black injustice, global warming, women's rights, and political disparity were not in demand. Essentially, the world was not ready for her, which we see that time and time again. So also, I'm just gonna my journey with Butler's writing. I started with Kindred, because that's what people would always say. I started with Kindred in 2021, and I honestly wish I had known better. Then I read the Patternist series, and I'll put those covers there. I read the Patternist series in 2022 or 2021. I think that's 2021, yeah. And then I went on to Xenogenesis, also known as Lilith's Brood, in 2022. I read Power of the Sower in 2023, Fledgling in 2023 as well. And I have since reread Dawn and Mind of My Mind, as well as the graphic novel adaptation of Power of the Sower. Editing Octavia here, just wanted to mention that I also have read the graphic novel adaptation of Kindred as well. And I still need to get to Parable of the Talents, as well as Bloodchild, which is a collection of, I think it's 3 stories of hers. So those are the only 2 of hers that I have left. One being a sequel and the other being a short story collection. So basically, let's go into entry points, where to start with Butler's work. My first suggestion on like where to start would be the Patternist series, specifically Wild Seed, followed by Mind of My Mind. I think of those 2 books as being one book. Like, that's how I know they're 2 books. Technically, Wild Seed is considered a prequel to Mind of My Mind, but they very much work in concert. And so I would recommend, because they are so short, to read Wild Seed and then shortly after go into Mind of My Mind. And so what are they about? I totally did not like bring up synopses, so I'll go off the dome. So in Wild Seed, we meet Doro, and Doro is this being who can jump bodies. His spirit can jump bodies, and when he jumps bodies, that other spirit is essentially obliterated. They can never come back. That is it. And he finds a woman whose name, oh gosh, what's her name? Wow, I forgot her name. Oh my gosh, no, she's the other protagonist. But he finds a woman who she's been able to like live for a long time, and so he's like, your power interests me. And this takes place during, for the most of the book, it takes place during like during slavery, shortly after slavery. And so, but she has been alive for centuries. Oh my gosh, what is her name? Okay, I gotta get the book because this is gonna bother me to no end. Anyanwu. Okay, great. So he meets Anyanwu, and I guess I can just, honestly, I'm not even gonna do it off the dome. I'm just gonna read you the synopsis now that I have the books. In an epic story of love and hate, 2 immortals chase each other across continents and centuries, binding their fates together and changing the destiny of the human race. Doro knows no higher authority than himself. An ancient spirit with boundless powers, he possesses humans, killing without remorse as he jumps from body to body to sustain his own life. With a lonely eternity ahead of him, Doro breeds supernaturally gifted humans into empires that obey his every desire. He fears no one until he meets Anyanwu. Anyanwu is an entity like Doro and yet different. She can heal with a bite and transform her own body, mending injuries and reversing aging. She uses her powers to cure her neighbors and birth entire tribes, surrounding herself with kindred who both fear and respect her. No one poses a true threat to Anyanwu until she meets Doro. The moment Doro meets Anyanwu, he covets her, and from the villages of 17th century Nigeria to 19th century United States, their courtship becomes a power struggle that echoes through generations, irrevocably changing what it means to be human. So this is book 1 in the Patternist series, and Mind of My Mind is the sequel. It's book 2. It's like, do I want to read you the synopsis of Mind of My Mind? Because I don't, because my recommendation is that you read both of them, Wild Seed and then into Mind of My Mind. I kind of think of them as a package deal in that respect. And so I think that Wild Seed and Mind of My Mind are one of the best starting points for Butler's works because they are fairly short reads. There's minimal world building, and magic/science isn't complicated at all. And their social commentary is more straightforward compared to other of her works. And Mind of My Mind, well, Wild Seed and Mind of My Mind both explore themes of class, dominance and subservience, and cycles of abuse and manipulation, as well as self-determination, reproductive rights of women, etc. And then another entry point would be Parable of the Sower, which I also do have right here. And this is the first in, it was supposed to be a trilogy, I'm pretty sure. Or at least it was supposed to have more than 2 books, but unfortunately Butler passed before she was able to write the 3rd book. So you have Parable of the Sower, and then following this one is Parable of the Talents. When global climate change and economic crisis lead to social chaos in the early 2020s, California becomes full of dangers, from pervasive water shortage to masses of vagabonds who would do anything to live to see another day. 15-year-old Lauren Olamina lives inside a gated community with her preacher father, family. Sorry, y'all, I'm watching Strawberry play with her tail. Family and neighbors, sheltered from the surrounding anarchy. In a society where any vulnerability is a risk, she suffers from hyperempathy, a debilitating sensitivity to others' emotions. Precocious and clear-eyed, Lauren must make her voice heard in order to protect her loved ones from the imminent disasters her small community stubbornly ignores. But what begins as a fight for survival soon leads to something much more: the birth of a new faith and a startling vision of human destiny. And that is the synopsis to Parable of the Sower. And I think this is a good starting point or entry point because of the epistolary style. Makes it super quick. It's written only in diary entries or letters to herself, so it's a very quick read, even though it is, you know, it looks a little chunky. Kind of. It's very quick read, very much dystopian, and it feels very familiar. It starts in the year 2024, which is a little eerie, and it's a singular perspective with no shifting POVs. So you are solely being told the story from the perspective of Lauren. And this explores themes of global warming, late stage or really final stage capitalism, and community-based survival. And then going into if you like X, try Y. So like basically alternative entry points that I think would also be good. Like Wild Seed and Out of My Mind and Parable of the Sower, I think, are probably the easiest entry points. But if you're wanting something a little bit different or those synopses don't call to you, I have some other suggestions. The first one being Fledgling. And what does it say? Oh, this is a very short synopsis. Shori is a mystery. Seemingly a young girl, she wakes up alone in the woods with critical wounds and traumatic amnesia, only to learn she is actually a 53-year-old vampire, the lost child of an ancient species that is driven by blood and lives in dark symbiosis with humanity. Genetically modified to be able to walk in daylight, Shori must use her rare gift to uncover whatever she can about her old life and figure out who wants to destroy her and the rest of her kind. And so if you like / want a standalone book, so something that's not a series, because the other 2 that I mentioned are series. So if you want a standalone novel, this is a complete story in this one book. If you want black vampires, here you go. If you want a subtle romantic plot with multiple partners, commentary about race, interracial relationships with white partners, and community forward governing, as well as a main character who can't remember her past and is running from someone or something, and there's a little bit of a mystery element in there as well. If you like all those things, if all those things like push your buttons and things like that, I highly recommend you pick up Fledgling as your entry point. Or if you've already read Kindred, then I guess like a second entry point. Then another alternative entry point would be the Xenogenesis series, also known as Lilith's Brood. This series starts with Dawn, which is the book that I'm holding up right now. When Lilith Ayapo wakes from a deep sleep, she finds herself aboard a vast spaceship, haunted by confused memories of a nuclear war that ravaged the world. She discovers that she is being held by the Onkali, a seemingly benevolent alien race that intervened in the human race's extinction, rescuing the survivors from their ruined planet and placing them in a coma-like sleep for centuries. Now the restored Earth is ready for inhabitants, and the Onkali want Lilith to help awaken the rest of the survivors and rebuild humankind. But the Onkali have needs of their own, and salvation comes at a price. Soon, Lilith must choose how much of humanity she is willing to sacrifice for the future of her race. This is my second favorite Butler. The first one being Mind in My Mind, and then we have Dawn. This is great if you want aliens and like just like super sci-fi, really out there, futuristic, post-apocalyptic world. If you want something that is like a Noah's Ark, Adam and Eve type vibe, and also reluctant heroes. If you're someone who likes reluctant heroes, Lilith, sis did not want to be here. She is like the epitome of a reluctant hero. If you like all those things, definitely recommend starting with or trying next Dawn, which is the beginning of the Xenogenesis series. And then what you can save for later. Once you've read Mind of My Mind and Wild Seed and Power of the Sower, Power of the Talents, and you've read Dawn and you've read you've read Fledgling, or maybe you've read some of those that I just listed, then I would pick up Kindred. Because at that point, you really understand Butler's writing, you understand what she's doing, you understand how she's usually doing it, and you're not just going to stop at like that surface level of her writing. And then you'll also be able to like ask yourself or compare her writing in Kindred versus her writing in her other books, and how there are some interesting differences and why that is. And this one is more literary in its approach to sci-fi, which I think I talk about or I hint at a little bit in the clip at the beginning of this video. But if you like, a more literary sci-fi novel, if you like time travel, if you like two people who are tied together by fate, but it's not necessarily romantic, that is, Kindred. It also explores Black Americans' inevitable tie to white supremacy and white capitalism and imperialism, and that just fraught relationship that seems to never be ending. And then another, save for later, is Clay's Arc and Pattern Master. These two are books 3 and 4 of the Patternist series, so it comes after Wild Seed and Mind of My Mind. Honestly, the way that she wrote this series, you don't have to like zoom through it. Clay's Arc they all take place years and like decades after one another. And Clay's Arc is so weird and so out there that I would definitely read more of her work before jumping from Mind of My Mind to Clay's Arc and then Pattern Master, because they're very out there, especially Clay's Arc, and they're very different from the first 2 books in the series. But yeah, that is it. That is my guide to Octavia E. Butler. And let me know if you've read any Butler and which ones. And if you haven't, or if you've only read Kindred, which of the ones that I mentioned seems more your speed, like which one speaks to you and your reading taste. Thank you so much for watching, and make sure to check out my Bonfire, my Etsy shop, all of my socials, Amazon wishlist. If you want to support the channel even more, make sure to check out the possibility of becoming a Patreon member or a channel member, and I will see you in another video. Bye!
Showing. I ain't living for the moment. I see what's mine and I want it. Hungry like a Pac-Man. I'm Bruce Wayne and Batman. I'm Naruto with a Hanzo. Got a sharp mind like I'm Einstein. Plus I'm copywriting, so it's all mine. Check it for me.